I didn't sign up for this. That's what the text said. Just 5 words sitting under a screenshot of our empty joint account. My name is Logan, 32 years old, head mechanic at Wilson's Auto in Spokane. 4 hours earlier, I'd been sitting in a doctor's office hearing words like lymphoma and treatment options and survival rates. Stage 2, treatable but a long road ahead. I called Vanessa from the parking lot. My hands trembled so badly I had to rest them against the steering wheel first. When she answered, her voice had that distracted quality it often had lately, half listening, half somewhere else. I asked her to meet me at home so we could talk. She responded with excuses. Busy, errands, would be back later. The drive home passed in a blur of green lights and stop signs, my mind replaying the doctor's careful, measured words about what came next. Chemotherapy, possible radiation, months of treatment. I pulled into our driveway expecting to see Vanessa's car. The empty space beside mine sent the first chill through me. Inside, the house felt different. A subtle wrongness hung in the air like an unfamiliar scent. Half the closet stood empty. Vanessa's suitcase gone. Wedding photo removed from the nightstand, leaving a dust-free rectangle on the wood surface. A perfect negative space where our life together had been. Then the text came, along with the screenshot showing she'd transferred our entire savings, $38,000 we'd put away over 5 years to an account with only her name on it. I stared at the message for a full minute, my vision narrowed to those 5 words. I didn't sign up for this. Not I'm sorry or I can't handle this, or any other phrasing that might have softened the blow. Just 5 words that reduced our marriage to a contract she was terminating because the terms had changed. My fingers hovered over the screen, dozens of responses flooding my mind. Anger. Please. Questions. In the end, I typed back just 2 words, take care. Then I put my phone down, opened a beer and sat on our back deck watching the sunset. Didn't cry, didn't throw anything, just sat there feeling the weight of everything shift. The cancer I could face. The betrayal was something else entirely. The evening air carried the scent of freshly cut grass and distant barbecues. Normal life continuing all around me while mine had just collapsed. Tim from next door saw me sitting there and walked over to the fence. His expression carried the concerned curiosity of a neighbor who'd witnessed something unusual. Vanessa's hasty departure, perhaps. He asked if everything was all right, mentioning he'd seen Vanessa peel out earlier with her car packed up. I took a long pull from my beer, considering how much to share. The words "I have cancer and my wife just left me" seemed too heavy to place on a neighbor's shoulders. Instead, I told him I'd gotten some health news, and Vanessa hadn't taken it well. Tim nodded, his eyes showing he understood more than I'd said. He offered help without pressing for details, mentioning his wife Lisa made a mean casserole. I thanked him, grateful for the simple kindness. A casserole wouldn't fix anything, but the offer meant I wasn't completely alone. After he left, I went inside and pulled out the folder my Uncle Brian had given me last month. The edges were still crisp, the tab labeled in his precise handwriting, estate planning. Brian had retired from estate planning last year, but still kept his hand in. When my grandfather passed in February and left me that small piece of land up north, Brian had helped me get the paperwork straight, had insisted actually. His voice, tempered by decades of handling family crises, had been gentle but firm. Everyone needs their affairs in order, he'd said, especially when you're married. Protect each other. I'd started the process, updated my will, listed Vanessa as co-owner on the '69 Mustang. I'd restored, though I hadn't filed the final paperwork with the DMV yet. Set up a secondary account at a different bank for the land sale proceeds when that went through. All to protect us, to protect her. Funny how things work out. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd been preparing to take care of Vanessa if something happened to me, while she'd been preparing to leave at the first sign of trouble. I picked up my phone and called Brian. When he answered, I could hear the television in the background, the muffled sounds of a baseball game. I asked him if he remembered our conversation about estate planning, saying I needed to make some changes. There was a pause. The background noise diminished as he presumably moved to a quieter room. He asked if everything was okay, his voice carrying that same careful tone the doctor had used hours earlier. No, I said, but it will be. I met Vanessa at my buddy Drew's wedding in 2016. She was a paralegal at a law firm downtown. Smart, quick-witted, beautiful. Her laugh carried across the room, drawing me to her like gravity. We moved in together 6 months later, married the year after that. The first few years were good. We saved for a house, found a fixer-upper in a decent neighborhood. I spent weekends replacing cabinets, refinishing floors, installing new plumbing. Vanessa chose paint colors and furniture, posted before and after photos online, called us a renovation success story. My dad died when I was 13. Mom raised me and my sister on a teacher's salary, taught us to work hard, live within our means, and always have a backup plan. After Mom passed 2 years ago, that backup plan became even more important to me. Vanessa came from different stock. Her parents gave her everything: college tuition, new car every few years, down payment for our house. They never understood why she married a mechanic. Her dad, a corporate attorney, always introduced me as Vanessa's husband rather than using my name. Looking back, I see the cracks started forming well before my diagnosis. 3 months ago, Vanessa started talking about moving to Seattle, said there were better opportunities there. I resisted. My job was solid. We had friends here. The house was almost paid off. She got quiet after those conversations. Distant. Spent more time with friends I'd never met. Then came the small comments that stung more than they should have. Questions about whether I wanted to do something more with my life than fix cars. Comparisons to her college roommate's husband who had just made partner at his firm. Wistful wonderings about what might have happened if she'd moved to Chicago after graduation instead of staying here. I ignored the signs, told myself every marriage has rough patches, that we'd work through it. When I found the business card for an apartment complex in Seattle tucked in her purse, I still didn't confront her, just quietly called my Uncle Brian to discuss updating our legal paperwork, started documenting our assets, just in case. 2 weeks later, I went to the doctor for what I thought was a persistent cold, found the swollen lymph nodes instead, then the blood tests, the biopsy. The night before my final diagnosis, Vanessa and I had dinner at our kitchen table. She talked about a co-worker's promotion. I watched her face, wondering if she'd noticed the fear in mine. She eventually asked if everything was okay. Her fork paused halfway to her mouth, the question more obligation than concern. I lied, told her I was just tired. She nodded and kept eating, didn't push further, didn't really look at me. That should have told me everything I needed to know. 3 days after Vanessa left, I started chemotherapy. First session hit me harder than I expected. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and false cheer, corridors too bright under fluorescent lights. The treatment room held a circle of recliners, most occupied by people in various stages of illness, some reading, some sleeping, some staring blankly ahead. The nurse showed me to a recliner, hooked up the IV, and asked if my ride was in the waiting room. Her name tag read Julia. Her hands were gentle, efficient. I told her I'd taken an Uber, added that my wife was out of town, the lie easier than the truth. She gave me a look I couldn't quite read, then patted my arm, told me the first treatment is always the hardest, but I'd get through it. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Hadn't told anyone except Tim next door that Vanessa was gone for good, not just out of town. Somehow saying it aloud would make it more real, more shameful. The IV dripped clear liquid into my veins, poison to kill the poison already there. I watched it flow, wondering how something could both harm and heal. When I got home, there was a casserole on my front porch with a note from Tim's wife. The note claimed she'd made too much, but I knew it was a lie meant to preserve my dignity. I appreciated it anyway. The house felt emptier than before, larger and smaller at the same time. Spaces Vanessa had occupied, her side of the couch, her chair at the table, now seemed to expand with her absence, while the walls pressed in closer. I tried to eat but couldn't keep anything down, ended up on the bathroom floor, sweating and shaking, alone, the cold tile against my cheek both comforting and cruel. That night I called my sister Ellie in Portland, told her everything: the cancer, Vanessa, the money. Her initial shocked silence gave way to anger, then determination. She wanted to drive up immediately. I asked her to wait, needed to sort some things out first, needed to understand what had happened before I could accept help, needed to feel my way through this darkness alone before letting in any light. The next morning, I called my bank. The customer service representative's voice changed when I explained the situation, became softer. She confirmed what I already knew. Vanessa had emptied our accounts 40 minutes after I called her from the doctor's office, before she even knew the details. Just knew I was sick, and that was enough for her to run. Something shifted inside me. The sadness hardened into something else. Not anger exactly, purpose. I drove to my Uncle Brian's house that afternoon, brought all our financial documents, property records, everything. The manila folders sat between us on his kitchen table, each containing pieces of a life now fractured. Brian reviewed the statements, his reading glasses perched on the end of his nose, his expression darkening with each page. He pointed out that what Vanessa had done wasn't just cold, it might have been illegal. Taking all the money. When she knew I was sick, knew I'd have medical bills. I reminded him that it was a joint account with her name on it too. Legally, she had every right to that money. Brian took off his reading glasses, pinching the bridge of his nose. She suggested we might be able to prove she took the money, knowing I was ill. Phone records would show I called her right after my appointment. The bank statement showed when she made the transfer. If I documented my diagnosis date, I pulled out my phone, showed him the text she'd sent. I didn't sign up for this. 5 words that might now serve. Brian's expression hardened. That's pretty damning, he said. We spent the next 3 hours mapping out a strategy. The Mustang title change, the land sale, my medical insurance and treatment costs, documenting everything. When I left Brian's house, my phone buzzed. Email from Vanessa's cousin Megan, who'd always been friendly to me. She expressed her shock and sympathy, saying she didn't know what Vanessa was thinking, offered help if I needed anything. I stared at the message for a long time, then asked if Vanessa knew about my diagnosis. Megan's response came quickly, confirming Vanessa had told everyone I had cancer, but said she couldn't handle it and needed a fresh start. Megan added that her whole family was shocked, that this wasn't right. I thanked her and put my phone away. Drove home with the windows down, feeling the summer air on my face. For the first time since the diagnosis, I felt clarity. I knew exactly what I needed to do. 2 weeks into treatment, I got a letter from Vanessa's lawyer, thick cream-colored envelope, the law firm's name embossed in dark blue. Inside, legal language disguising the simple truth. She wanted out, wanted to take even more, but didn't want to face me directly. She wanted a divorce, cited irreconcilable differences, requested to be removed from the mortgage, but wanted half the equity in the house. Said nothing about the money she'd already taken, nothing about my illness. I took the letter to Brian. She scanned the document, his eyebrows rising higher with each paragraph. She noted the boldness of taking all my savings, knowing I was sick, then wanting half the house too. When I asked what I should do, he advised patience. Wait to see how far she wanted to push this. The next day, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. It was Vanessa, with a new number. She acknowledged I might be upset, but insisted we needed to figure things out. Her lawyer had told her she was entitled to half the house. I didn't respond. 3 days later, another text accusing me of being childish, acknowledging I was going through stuff, but insisting she had rights too. Going through stuff. Like cancer was a bad mood I needed to get over. I blocked the number. My 3rd chemo session hit me hard. Couldn't keep food down for 2 days. Lost 12 pounds. The mirror showed a stranger, hollow-cheeked, pale, eyes too large for my face. Ellie finally came up from Portland, stayed for a week, cleaned the house, stocked the freezer with meals, drove me to appointments. Her presence filled the empty spaces,
made the house feel like a home again, even if temporary. The day before she left, we got another letter from Vanessa's lawyer, more demands, more threats about what I owed her. Ellie was furious. She pointed out that after what Vanessa did, she was lucky I hadn't taken her to court for the money she stole. We'll get there, I assured her. The wheels were already in motion. The following week, I received a certified letter from the bank. Vanessa had tried to remove my name from our joint credit cards, but couldn't without my signature. She'd also attempted to access our safe deposit box, the one containing the deed to the house, the Mustang title, and my grandfather's will. The bank had denied her access when she couldn't produce the second key, my key. I called Brian immediately. He recognized what this meant. She was getting desperate, probably realizing she'd left loose ends. When I asked about my next move, he suggested closing that safe deposit box and moving everything to a new one in my name only. He also thought it was time to file those title changes for the Mustang. I took a sick day, though every day was a sick day now. My body an unreliable vehicle, sometimes carrying me through the day, sometimes breaking down without warning. Went to the bank, closed the box, opened a new one, went to the DMV, removed Vanessa's name from the title that had never been finalized. That night, another text from a new number. Vanessa demanding to know why I changed the Mustang title, insisting the car was half hers because I'd put her name on it. I stared at the message. How did she know already? I'd only filed the paperwork that morning. Then it clicked. She must have someone at the DMV feeding her information, or the bank, someone watching my moves. I called Brian to share my suspicion. He agreed it was possible, noting her father had connections. He wouldn't put it past him to have someone monitoring my activities. When I asked what to do, Brian suggested feeding them wrong information, setting a trap. The next day, I called the realtor, who'd been handling my grandfather's land sale, asked her to pause the process, made sure to mention on the call that I was exploring other options for liquidating assets. Then I called my investment bank, where I had a small 401k from a previous job, asked about early withdrawal procedures, made it clear I was considering all options due to medical bills. I waited to see what Vanessa would do next. The bait was set. 2 days later, her lawyer sent a new letter, demanding a portion of any proceeds from the sale of inherited property, and a fair division of all retirement accounts. Brian smiled when I showed him the letter. She'd taken the bait. Now we had proof someone was monitoring my financial moves and reporting back to her. When I asked what our next step was, Brian said it was time to show our cards. I spent the next month focusing on my health. The treatments were brutal, but the doctors seemed cautiously optimistic. My hair was gone. I'd lost 30 pounds, but my numbers were improving. Ellie came up every other weekend. Tim and Lisa from next door checked on me daily. My boss cut my hours but kept my health insurance active. I was surviving both the cancer and Vanessa's departure. Some days were harder than others. Some nights I woke up reaching for someone who wasn't there, but mostly I stayed focused on the next step, the next treatment, the next move in the chess game Vanessa had started. Brian called on a Tuesday morning. His voice carried the satisfaction of a plan coming together. They'd obtained the documents from Vanessa's bank and discovered what she'd done with our money. She transferred it to a new account, then immediately wrote a check for $30,000 to her parents. I sat down, the implications hitting me hard. Why would she do that? Brian's theory was that she was trying to hide it, make it harder to trace or recover. But that's where she'd made her critical mistake. What she did wasn't legal. She transferred joint funds during a known medical crisis, then tried to hide the money through a third party. Any judge would see through this immediately. I expressed concern about a long court battle. I didn't have the energy for that right now. My battle with cancer was consuming all my resources. Brian assured me it wouldn't get that far. Once her lawyers saw what we had, they'd settle. 2 days later, I was leaving my treatment when I spotted a familiar car. In the hospital parking lot, silver BMW, Vanessa's father. He was sitting behind the wheel, watching the hospital entrance, watching for me. The sight of him so comfortable, so clean, so healthy, while I shuffled out of chemo sparked something primal in me. I walked straight to his car, knocked on the window. He rolled it down, his face composed in that lawyer mask I knew well. He commented on my appearance, the words unwell falling from his lips like he was describing a minor inconvenience. I replied that cancer will do that to a person, asked why he was there. He claimed Vanessa was concerned that she thought I was being unreasonable about the divorce proceedings. The absurdity nearly made me laugh. I questioned his definition of unreasonable, given that his daughter had taken every cent we had and left the day I was diagnosed. He had the decency to look uncomfortable, but still defended her, called her actions a mistake made when she was upset and emotional. I corrected him. This wasn't a mistake. It was a choice, a series of deliberate actions executed with precision. He sighed, adopting a tone of patronizing concern. He urged me to be practical, to focus on getting better rather than fighting a legal battle I couldn't afford. That's when it hit me. They thought I was desperate, thought I was broke after Vanessa cleaned out our accounts, thought I'd take any settlement just to avoid a fight. They had no idea about the land sale, no idea I'd removed her name from the Mustang title before she could claim it, no idea I'd documented everything. They thought they were dealing with a dying man too weak to fight back. I told him I'd have my response to Vanessa's lawyer by Friday, then turned to leave. He called after me, warning me not to make this harder than it needed to be. I didn't look back. Some things were worth fighting for, even when you're fighting for your life. On Thursday, I met with Brian and the real estate lawyer he'd brought in, Catherine Chen. Her office smelled of leather and lemon polish, the windows overlooking downtown Spokane. She wore confidence like a well-tailored suit. We reviewed everything. The bank records showing Vanessa's withdrawal immediately after my diagnosis, her text message, the witness statement from Megan confirming Vanessa knew about my cancer, the check to her parents. Catherine called it clear-cut financial abandonment, plus an attempt to conceal marital assets. No judge would look kindly on this. When I asked about our next move, she outlined a strategy. We would file our own divorce action demonstrating abandonment during medical crisis, financial malfeasance, and attempted concealment of funds. We would request full recovery of the missing funds plus legal fees. I asked if this approach would work. Catherine's smile carried the confidence of someone who'd won this battle before. She'd never seen a cleaner case, but she didn't think it would get that far. Once they saw what we had, they'd fold. And if they didn't, then we'd go to court, and she would lose everything, including her reputation. For the first time in months, I felt something like hope. Not joy, not satisfaction, but the quiet certainty that justice might still exist in the world. On Friday morning, Catherine sent our response to Vanessa's lawyer, a complete divorce filing with all the evidence attached, bank records, text messages, witness statements, medical documentation, everything laid out in cold, clear detail. By noon, Vanessa's lawyer requested an emergency meeting. That was fast, I commented to Brian over the phone. He wasn't surprised. They weren't expecting me to have ammunition. They thought I was too sick, too broke, or too beaten down to fight back. Now they were scrambling. The meeting was set for Monday. I spent the weekend resting, preparing mentally. The chemo had left me physically drained, but my mind felt sharper than it had in months. Focused, clear. On Sunday night, I got a text from yet another new number. Vanessa, this time adopting a tone of wounded innocence. She called my actions cruel and vindictive, claimed she'd made a mistake, said her parents couldn't give the money back right now, accused me of trying to destroy her. I stared at the screen, the blue light illuminating my face in the dark living room. Vindictive. The word hung in the air between us, even across digital space. I wasn't the one who abandoned a sick spouse and stole their life savings. I wasn't the one hiding behind lawyers and parents. I wasn't the one who texted, "I didn't sign up for this," instead of "I'm sorry." For the first time I texted back, "Actions have consequences." 3 words. Not angry, not bitter, just truth. Monday morning I met Brian and Catherine at her office.
The leather chairs in the conference room were comfortable, supportive, unlike the plastic chairs at the cancer center. They wanted me there but advised me to say nothing unless directly asked a question. Let them handle it. Vanessa arrived with her father and her lawyer, a thin man with expensive glasses and a permanent frown. She looked good. Tanned, rested, hair freshly highlighted, nails perfectly manicured, like the past few months had been a vacation while I'd been fighting for my life. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Maybe shame, maybe indifference. I couldn't tell anymore. Her lawyer spoke first, offering to negotiate a settlement to avoid unnecessary conflict. Catherine smiled, the expression not reaching her eyes. She made it clear this wasn't a negotiation. It was a courtesy meeting before we proceeded to court. She laid out the facts in precise, devastating order. Vanessa had abandoned her husband upon his cancer diagnosis, emptied their joint accounts, attempted to hide those funds through her parents, and then demanded additional assets. We had documented everything. Vanessa shifted in her seat, the first crack in her composure. Her father leaned forward, attempting to regain control of the situation. Catherine cut him off, asking if he would be returning the fraudulently obtained funds today, or if we should add him to the lawsuit. The room went silent. The air conditioning hummed. Outside, traffic moved along the street, people going about their normal lives. Vanessa's lawyer cleared his throat, asking what exactly we were demanding. Catherine laid out our terms. Full return of the $38,000. Vanessa to relinquish all claims to the house, the Mustang, my grandfather's land, and my retirement accounts. She would assume responsibility for all legal fees. In exchange, I would not pursue criminal charges for financial fraud and abandonment. Vanessa's father muttered that this was robbery. Catherine replied calmly that robbery was what his daughter did. This was justice. The meeting ended with Vanessa's lawyer asking for 48 hours to consider our terms. As we left the conference room, Vanessa tried to catch my eye. I walked past her without slowing down, without acknowledgement. She was a stranger now. In the elevator, Brian squeezed my shoulder, told me I'd done well in there. I pointed out that I hadn't done anything, just sat there. Sometimes that's the hardest part, he replied. Just showing up. Just being present. 2 days later, Catherine called. Her voice carried the quiet satisfaction of victory. Vanessa had accepted all our terms. Her parents would return the full $38,000 within 30 days. She would sign the papers relinquishing all claims to our property. It's over, Catherine said. You won, but it didn't feel like winning. It felt like the end of something I once thought would last forever, like closing a book halfway through the story. Still, for the first time since my diagnosis, I slept through the night. The weight had lifted, not entirely, but enough to breathe. The settlement money arrived exactly 30 days later, a cashier's check for the full $38,000. I deposited it immediately, then called my oncologist's office to pay down my medical bills. The nurse who'd been with me from the first treatment, Julia, was at the front desk when I arrived. She commented that I was looking better, noting my test numbers had improved the previous week. I told her I felt better too, handing over the check. She glanced at the amount, asking if insurance had come through, something like that. I replied, some things didn't need explaining. The divorce was finalized a week later. I signed the papers at Catherine's office, feeling strangely empty. Not sad, not angry, just stunned. Brian asked what came next. As we left the building, finish treatment, get better, figure out what's next, one step at a time. He nodded, reminding me the land sale should close next month, bringing another $65,000. He suggested I might consider selling the Mustang as well. Not yet, I said. I'm not ready to let go of everything. Some things were worth keeping, even if just as reminders of who I had been before all this, who I might be again. That evening, I sat on my back deck with a glass of water, watching the sunset. The nausea from chemo had finally subsided. My hair was starting to grow back, patchy, but there. The doctors were using words like responding well and promising outlook. My phone buzzed. Email from Megan, Vanessa's cousin. She'd heard everything was finalized and apologized for what her family had done. She shared that Vanessa's parents were selling their Lake Coeur d'Alene cabin to cover the money they owed me, and that her aunt was furious, blaming me instead of Vanessa. She wanted me to know some of them, understood what really happened, and hoped I was doing better, said I deserved that much. I put my phone away without replying. Didn't need to engage with Vanessa's family drama anymore. It was time to focus on healing, on rebuilding, on whatever came next. 6 months later, my oncologist said the words I'd been waiting for, complete remission. I sat in her office, letting the news sink in. The stereo examination room suddenly seemed brighter, the air easier to breathe. Not cured, lymphoma could always come back, but for now, the cancer was gone, the battle won. I asked what happens now. My doctor outlined the follow-up care, regular checkups, blood work, scans every 6 months. But her final instruction was the simplest and most difficult. Go live your life, Logan. That evening, I made 2 calls. First to Ellie, who screamed with joy when I shared the news, then to my buddy Joel in Missoula, who'd been offering me a job at his custom auto shop for years. I asked if he still had space for me. His enthusiasm came through the phone line. Asking when I could start. A month later, I sold the house in Spokane, used the money to buy a small cabin outside Missoula, 2 bedrooms, a garage big enough for my tools, and the Mustang, and mountains visible from every window. A place to start over, a place that had never known Vanessa. The day I drove out of Spokane, Tim and Lisa from next door came to say goodbye. Lisa handed me a casserole for the road, the same kindness that had sustained me through the darkest days now, sending me off to something better. I thanked them for everything, the meals, the lawn loan, the quiet support when I needed it most, the simple human decency that reminded me not everyone leaves when things get hard. Tim asked if I was really okay. The question held genuine concern, not just politeness. I thought about it, getting there, the truest answer I could give.
3 months into my new life in Montana, I got a text from an unknown number. Vanessa again. She'd heard about my remission and expressed gladness, said she thought about me often, called her actions a terrible mistake born of fear and selfishness, apologized for everything. I read it twice, considering whether to respond. In the end, I typed back just 4 words. I survived. Be well. Then I blocked the number, put my phone away and went to work on the Mustang, not to sell it anymore, to keep it, to restore it again, this time just for me. Some things, once broken, can't be fixed, but others can be rebuilt, stronger than before. I was one of them.